Hello and welcome to 3 Minute Gaming. I'm Nathan, and today I'm going to tell you if this game's worth their time and bandwidth. Today's game is Aero the Acrobat 2. The sequel to the Batty 16-bit mascot platformer is here. Does it improve on its just okay predecessor? Let's find out. Aero the Acrobat 2 is a re-release of a 1994 Super Nintendo and Genesis game, ported by Ratalakia, who also re-released the first Aero game. There's actually kind of a story this time, even though it's bat hit insane. A crazy robot clown is trying to make clones of Aero and kidnaps his weirdly busty bat girlfriend, and also there's a mad scientist and Russians? It's complete nonsense. Gameplay-wise, more has changed than first meets the eye. Aero still controls almost identically as he did in the first game, with his primary means of attacking being a double jump that can be aimed either up or down to strike enemies. He also has a few other moves, such as a slide or a direct drop, though you probably won't use them as much. Level design is where Aero has mixed things up. Gone is the first game's large open stages that were objective-based. Aero 2 embraces games of its era and is a linear 2D platformer across 6 stages with 3 levels each and 3 bosses. Nothing spicy here. Well, actually, there is a bit of spice, and it's in the game's aesthetic, as Aero's left the circus and gone completely insane. While some early levels are more normal, it quickly turns into fighting Russians in the snow after snowboarding down a mountain, a mad scientist lab that looks straight out of Earthworm Jim, and an absolutely trippy 90s CD world that is just so of the era. I love it. The 3 bosses all function fairly similarly, with them often doing attacks that move them back and forth across the screen, and that's the only time they can be damaged, which makes boss fights plotting affairs. The final boss also has a massively brutal auto-scroll stage before you can fight him, which is the game's biggest challenge. Speaking of challenge, aside from the final level, Aero 2 is much easier than the first. It gives you way more health pickups and extra lives, and with the re-release you get the usual stuff of save states, rewind, and a bunch of cheats. And that's Aero 2, basically taking Aero 1 and making it more like games of its era, but keeping its core movement ideas and colorful visuals. So what do I like about Aero the Acrobat 2? Well, overall this game is a big improvement on the first one in terms of how the levels play out. While definitely less original than the big goal-oriented stages, the linear stages in 2 play much better and make the game a smoother playthrough overall. Additionally, I dig this game's look. While it dips into surreal more than a few times, having Aero fight Russians and smaller bats aren't those the same as him? Now, regardless, the stage design here is absolutely nuts and imaginative and is paired with some phenomenal pixel art and animation. And lastly, while I'm mixed on the aesthetic of Ratalakia's new retro game UI, the features here are fantastic. Usual rewind save states, cheats, and such, but there's also tons of scans of artwork, box art, manuals, and more. When it comes to the bad, the bosses are the weak point here, as most have weird rules around only being damageable during specific attack animations, and as mentioned, that makes them significant slogs over their 2 phases. Additionally, level design I would describe as completely okay, but it never really reaches great. It still suffers a bit of the first game's odd level pacing and platform challenges, and also lacks a coherent through line in its visuals as the story just goes wherever. And lastly, I'm still a bit frustrated in Aero's double jump, moving him left or right instead of straight up, making it tricky to master. I actually found it more difficult in this game because of the linearity allows for the maps to have more platforming challenge than the first, which really shows the weakness of this control scheme. As you know, I rate games here on a 3-point scale: must play, maybe consider, and don't bother, and Aero the Acrobat 2 is a surprisingly solid 16-bit platformer, taking the concepts from the first game and creating levels better suited to Aero's abilities. While it does lose a little of the original's novelties, has weak bosses, and never reaches a level of exceptional, Aero 2 is still absolutely worth grabbing today if you're a retro game fan or just love this era of platformers. That's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. If you played or heard of Aero the Acrobat 2, are you going to check it out? Did you check out the first one? Let me know what you think in the comments, but regardless, if you love retro platformers, make sure you go give Aero the Acrobat 2 a look.